before that 1031 expired, I reached out to every single one of them I could. Now, I also dealt with brokers. I dealt with real estate agents. I was a real estate agent as well. So there's three facets to it, but it all really depends on how much work you want to put into it. It's like anything. It takes work, but it's not hard, right? I tell people, like, digging a ditch is hard, or going to prison for 20 years would be very hard. But this is inconvenient. So how inconvenienced do you want to be to have an incredible life in 5 to 10 years?
What is going on, guys? On today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast, we have Grant Warrington, who is a multifamily extraordinaire, especially with the smaller multifamily stuff, which I think is a really good sort of niche, because I feel like everyone is always just trying to go bigger, bigger, bigger all the time. And we have a really great conversation today about the niche that he has found in like the 5 to, 20 unit range, Dan?
Yeah. Like 5 to 20 unit savage is what I would call him. Not extraordinary. Yeah. I'd call him a savage at the 5 to 20 unit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, But either way, the 5 to 20 unit range is his bread and butter. And we go into a pretty wide ranging conversation to this about how he finds these deals, how he runs the conversations with the sellers. He does all of this direct to seller. He doesn't really use brokers that often.
And he doesn't do anything fancy with it. Like he just does he called it inconvenient work, which we all should be doing.
Totally. And the funny thing is, I said it kind of partway through the show here, but what he goes through and I describes it, surprise guys, it is a marketing and sales process that is extraordinarily similar to every other business. So if you're trying to do any business and you're like, man, this marketing and sales thing kind of sucks, I don't want to do it. Sorry, it's exactly the same in small multifamily as it is in everything.
Oh no.
else.
Yep.
So, but either way, really, really good show. And then at the end, we start to talk about some of the other content he's producing out there. He's done a lot of real estate content over the years, and now he's starting to veer into some other stuff, which is going to be really interesting to see how that unfolds. But either way, he's a super, super good personality, really nice guy. So don't be afraid to reach out to him either. So very present on Instagram. He does lots of fun YouTube and everything else. So anyways, guys, really good show today. Enjoy the show with Grant Warrington. All right, Grant Warrington, my man, super excited to have you on the show today. For people who maybe haven't heard about you, give us kind of like the 30-second view, who you are, what exactly you specialize in, and what your business currently looks like.
Yeah, no problem. I'm probably like a lot of people out there listening. I hated listening to all these podcasts after a certain amount of time, so I'm going to keep it real brief. I was a construction worker, hated having a boss, didn't know what to do. Bad drinking problem, got into real estate, had to declare bankruptcy, and I was a shit show. And I changed all that. And now here we started buying apartment buildings, and we lived in Detroit. Now we've moved to Florida, and life has completely changed for us thanks to real estate.
Wow. Awesome. That's cool. So you said you started buying apartment buildings. What does your current portfolio look like? And I guess like, are you still actively acquiring? Are you just on financial freedom mode? Like, what's all that look like?
So we started buying single family rentals, and I tell people, man, just get in wherever you can. I have a course, Apartment Buying Blueprint. I teach people how to buy small apartments, 5 to 20 units. That's where the bread and butter is. And you're going to hear a lot more about that in the coming years. Syndicators are switching to, hey, I should buy my own apartment buildings. Like, there's more money in it. I don't have to incorporate 35 different people in this product. And then with single family rentals, after a while, you're going to figure out, I'm going to need to own 50 of them to make any money. And that just to us was just absurd. So we'd have to put a roof on, and all of a sudden that wiped out our profits for years on a single family. So
yeah. Is that why you said you declared, you said got into real estate, then declared bankruptcy, or did you declare it before? This is a single family drove you to bankruptcy?
So what happened in 2003, I was buying, I bought a course by Carlton Sheets. If anybody remembers Carlton Sheets, through the mail, you get these cassette tapes, right? And you listen to them, how to buy no money down. And I listened to 0 of them. All I did was buy them. So I was a genius, right? And so uneducated. I had no education on what I was doing. I had a bad drinking problem at the time, very bad. And I decided, though, when I bought this, I'm going to give my tenants, I won't make them pay rent around Christmas. Like, I'm going to be a good landlord. You know what I mean? And that's why a lot of the shit on the internet just drives me crazy about how bad landlords are and that let's pass all these laws against landlords, and nobody's sticking up for landlords. And it just drives me crazy. So I did that. I got into it with all of this good intention, and then no one paid me.
Yeah.
So whose fault was it? It was my fault. I didn't screen properly. I didn't know what I was doing. Again, the drinking problem. I don't blame any of them. I had a mentor. He was a terrible mentor. And that's who I bought 2 of the 3 houses from. Nice. But guess what? Guess whose fault it was? It was mine. That's the accountability. And no matter anybody listening to this, if you failed in life, you really haven't failed. You've just learned with the tools you were given. So just take responsibility, ownership, and just proceed. So again, before 2008, they were giving away loans, man. I took 3 of them, and it didn't work. Everybody owed me money, $5,000 on each house. I wasn't working. I owed my own money on my own house. I took a $28,000 home equity line of credit on my personal home to pay mortgages. Ooh. And finally, it all caught up with me. I was breaking out. I was, my health was so bad because I was going through all this, but luckily there was nobody else in the deal. It was just me. And I gave all the properties back to the bank, declared bankruptcy in 2007. And I was like, I'm never getting debt again. I learned a valuable lesson, but I always told myself, I know I'll get back into it. But I was done with debt. I was like, that's it. It's over with. And then 2011, quit drinking with the help of God. And that slowly started to change my life. Met my wife in 2014, and she said, you know what? I've always wanted to buy real estate. And I said, so have I. And look at all these books I got. So that's when it started. I said, let's buy a single family house together. And then we were off to the races again, the correct way with an education.
Cool.
That's a great story.
Yeah. And you said you specialize in the 5 to 20 units. So what specifically do you like about that asset class? Because if I'm being honest, if I go on social media right now, all I see is people. In fact, yesterday I saw this video from Brandon Turner basically saying that buying anything underneath 70 units is a waste of time. And he listed out all these reasons why it sucks. But I disagree with that personally because we're honestly residential people as well. Yeah. But the 5 to 20 unit range, why did you find that to be your sweet spot?
Well, first I want to tell people, like, you got to start somewhere. And that's what I'm disappointed to hear him say that. But I mean, I know why he says it, right? Because I tell people apartments are the best. I think they are, but you got to start somewhere. If Brandon Turner would have started with that mentality, he wouldn't be where he's at today. 100%. He started with 1 rental. You guys have seen the pictures of him. And that's why we all liked him and resonated with him. He's an awesome dude. And he knows what he's talking about. But it's scale. So what I love what he's saying about it, because if you're not leveling up in real estate investing, you're going to get beat up in real estate investing. So once you do, like those 5 to 20 units, I teach people, let's work on your first building. Let's get you there. And then we're going to work on leveling up to a bigger property, to a newer property, to a better class property, because your tenant base can beat you up, man, bad. And you get a D-class tenant in a D-class neighborhood, and you're going to have a lot of problems. Like I always, I come from the Detroit area. Everybody looks at Zillow, to buy a house for $20,000 in Detroit. Looks like a no-brainer, right? I could rent it for $1,200. That property, you're going to get people that have to live in that area that qualify for that property. Like you two aren't going to live there, and you two are the people I want to be my tenants, right?
Right, totally.
But you're not going to be. And it's just economic drivers, right? That these people, they have evictions, they have this, they have that, lower income, whatever it might be, because people are trying to move outside of the city of Detroit. So I tell people, like, look around the city of Detroit. Look at maybe cities that touch Detroit and start there, because you got to start somewhere. We started in a city called Lincoln Park, touches Detroit. Wasn't the best neighborhood, but it was better. And but you got to start somewhere. So I would say start with a single family if that's where you're comfortable, and that's what you can do.
Sure. So I would say too, with the thing that comes to mind on these smaller ones, because Mike and I have owned and do own smaller buildings like that 5 to 20 unit, is it's a lot easier to find and acquire those than it is 100+ unit, because of the 100+ unit, you have people making offers and willing to take, a small return. Like, they were buying those at like basically 1 and 2 caps. Right. And I think that is catching up with people now. But to me, and I'll test this on you, is it seems like when you can find these smaller apartment buildings, they're typically mom and pop people. Yeah. And there's some value add component, and it's just, they're more plentiful than if you're going to go out and buy a 100+ unit.
Yeah. And you know what? And I forgot to tell you, 2 commercial loans, right? When you get into 5 units and above, that's commercial loans. They're going to base it off of the building, the performance of the building, the finances of the building, and not so much yourself. Sure. So that's the value too. If you ever bought a house or a single family rental, it's like, man, they stick that probe up your ass and they want to know every single thing. It's terrible. And then you buy a commercial loan and you're like, oh, wow, that wasn't that bad. I'll do more of those.
Yeah. Now instead they just stick the probe up the seller's ass to see their financials, and that's their problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's what I love. The other thing with the 5 to 20 units, and again, with my course, I just put that on there because I don't want to scare people. If you own a couple rentals and you're scared to make that jump, it's not that difficult. So that's why I saved 5 to 20, but it's 5 to anything below a syndication.
Sure.
Okay. But I teach people to find properties off market.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's so many properties out there. It's easy to find them. And I teach them how to do it for free, and just with the tools, your computer, and you can get the owner's cell phone number, all that. And that's what I do. Teach them how to do those, how to target those people, and just how to have conversations with owners, and, go after seller financing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. I got seller financing. I found 31 units off market. So that's where the money is. Because 2 things, everything on market is already a bad deal, really. Yeah. And then also a lot of the gurus that you guys see, again, I talk about leveling up, but a lot of the guys on Instagram or girls that are killing it, crushing it, that teach single family rentals, they've already leveled up to apartment buildings. They just forgot to tell you, right?
Yeah.
Or you hear, they've bought the boutique hotel or whatever it is. That's a multifamily property. So they're realizing too, like, oh, I need to level up. It's all leveling up, but you got to start somewhere, and then just realize one day, eventually I might have to level up into bigger buildings or not. If you want to just own 6, great. Just own 6 and pay those off, and you'll have a nice little retirement.
Well, so just quickly, what does that look like? Because Mike and I, obviously, that's what we do a lot, is like teaching people how to find deals from an off-market small multi. Are you showing them like, hey, here's kind of the parameters of what a building needs to look like? Probably going into like PropStream or something, saying 5 to 20 units, of course, looking at some age, probably looking at some like equity position in it that would look good for somebody that wants to seller finance it, because not everybody's a seller financing fit. But if they meet these metrics, you're saying that would be probably a good one to reach out, negotiate seller financing.
Yeah. So what I teach people is just not even to have to buy PropStream or anything like that. I teach people, create your buy box, right? Yeah. What kind of age, what kind of building, what area. And once you figure all that out, once you figure your area out, just start looking. And you can look with Google Maps. You'd be shocked if you look at Google Maps in an area and just you start in one corner of the city and just start looking from above. Look for large roofs and large parking lots. Jump down to Street View. Yeah, there's an apartment building. Write the number down. That's what I do. And then I will reach, I'll get the owner information from that. Then I can Google, get the owner's cell phone number. There's a couple different ways. And then I just reach out to the owner. But a lot of these buildings you're going to see like that, the 5 to 20 units, they're either generational. So they've been in the family for years, or they are somebody who's, 70, 80 years old. This is their baby. They've had it forever, but it's a little beat up. You can tell it's a little worn out. The grass isn't cut. The windows are old, right? So you can look at these and go, this has been neglected, right? So more than likely, this is somebody that owns it outright, probably owned it for years, and you can do a little free searching, and you can find that out, how long the owners owned it. And what that means is their rents are low and they don't fix anything. No. So you have a certain tenant base in there, but that's the trade-off. Hey, I'm going to keep your rent low, but I'm not going to fix anything. Yeah. And you're probably going to be happy with it. So when people always say, someone's selling you a building and you hear them say, I have long-term tenants in there. Okay, that tells me two things. One, the rents are very low.
Yeah.
Two, it's a tough tenant base.
Yeah.
And three, it's going to need a lot of repairs.
That's so funny.
And
We say the same thing.
Stayed places for 20 years.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We literally had this conversation on one of our scale community calls yesterday. We're doing a sales review of one of our members. And the seller on the phone was like, yeah, the place is in great condition. We've had the same tenants in there for 15 years. I'm like, okay, it sucks at that point. That's a long time to be fixing up nothing. At that property.
Yes.
So true.
So,
One thing I think about, just to maybe close out the acquisition piece of this, that I personally think about is, for us, Mike and I have such a great pipeline for like single family. Like for us, we could go find single families all day long. I stress more about owning the single family than I do our larger or smaller multifamily. And so to me, it does make sense if you can to step into that like 5 to 20 unit range. But you sometimes, especially if you're going to do seller financing, a lot of times they're going to want like a down payment or something. So I think about like, hey, can I flip a house, make 30, 40, 50 grand, and then reposition that into a multifamily instead of keeping it into a single family rental?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what, like, for when you're doing these seller finance deals, is that what you're helping like your students and stuff, like figuring out that cash position? Because it does take money, right? Ultimately, real estate is not a zero money down industry. I mean, like we all hear about.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And if some people are in that situation, I would tell them, find a partner, right? Find somebody with money. If you have time and you're going to go out and do all these deals and you're going to do all the work, bring somebody in that has money. But
right.
Yeah, to your point, we've done a 1031 exchange. We sold 3 houses and took the proceeds and then bought a building with that. So, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do to get those buildings, but with seller financing, it's all negotiation.
Right.
So it just depends. Our first building, he wanted 20% down. I fought him on that, but he owed so much money to other people. He owed, I think he owed back taxes. He owed all these different things. He's like, I have to get 20% down. And there's just nothing else I can do. Like, I need to pay now or they're going to take the building.
Yeah.
So, and I know, I forget exactly what it was, because I know that would wash out at title, but he needed the 20%. I fought him, but he gave me other things. He gave me a 30-year amortization, and that kept my payment down low. He gave me, we had keys to the building 9 months before we bought it. It took 9 months to buy this building. It was disaster.
That's interesting. So you maybe got to do some value add before you actually had to take on the liability.
We didn't work on it because we didn't know if it was going to close, but we got to get in there. We made lists. We got to walk vacant. We got to look at everything and get an idea of what we're going to do. That's the hard part. If you don't have if you don't know what kind of materials you're going to use, if you just buy this building and you go in, and if you say, all right, unit 1, I'm going to rehab it this way. Unit 2, let's make it a little different. We'll do different light fixtures and different, right? Like, this would be cool. You cannot do that. You have to do everything the same. Yeah. So we knew the paint color we were going to use. Now, we use this on all 41 of our units. The carpeting, the vinyl plank flooring, what kind of light fixtures, kitchen faucets, everything. Everything is the same on all of our properties. That way our contractors know what to use and we know what to use. And anytime somebody gets in there to do a rehab or a turnover, it's simple. We know what to use. We order the same materials and so that's the best way to do it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Do you think there's like a good opportunity in that space to create the vertical income as well? I know you said doing partnerships, but one of the reasons that we're so hard on like the residential piece is a big motto of our show is you want to focus on creating massive income before creating passive income with your real estate investing business. And the thing with residential real estate is it's so easy to create a large income as well that you can use to invest, through wholesaling, through flipping, through being a realtor, through like different relationship-based things like that. On the multifamily side, is there an option that you think realistically exists with the lead flow that you have? Like, I understand you could flip or wholesale multifamily properties, but I guess my roundabout question is like, how many chances are you getting with all of these deals? Are you looking at like having like several conversations a month, several a week? Is it like 3 times a year? Like, I guess I don't necessarily have context for what a realistic sort of
Yeah.
lead flow
So
is.
it all depends on how many people you get on your list. So the more people you put on your list, the better off you're going to be. And that's your off market list, right? So you just got to do the work. You push out. If you live in Manhattan, right? And people are going to say, well, I can't find any properties in Manhattan that you know, are your criteria. Then push out. Maybe look in New Jersey. But I had like 100 and at one point in Michigan where I lived, 110 in my geographical area off market. And I would reach out to them. And that 1031, that's what I did before that 1031 expired. I reached out to every single one of them I could. Now, I also dealt with brokers. I dealt with real estate agents. I was a real estate agent as well. So there's three facets to it, but it all really depends on how much work you want to put into it. On that end is putting people on that list, looking for apartment. It's like anything. It takes work, but it's not hard, right? I tell people like digging a ditch is hard, or going to prison for 20 years would be very hard. But this is inconvenient. So how inconvenienced do you want to be to have an incredible life in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. And that gives me good context. You had 110 and out of those, how many like good conversations were you having? A lot. Interesting.
Believe it or not. Yeah, a lot. I call people and I teach people that you want to just be nice and say, hey, how you doing? My name is Grant Warrington. I own 3 apartment buildings in the area there by yours. You know, my wife and I always drive by your building. Love the property. I mean, you're in a great location. Have you ever thought about buying? You know, and it's like, okay, I'm local. I'm nice. I'm not sending a mailer. And I'm on the phone with them, right? So people can be a lot more rude over the internet. But when you're on the phone with people, they tend to be a little bit nicer. And I always have nice conversations. What are you renting your one beds for? We're renting ours for, $925.
Sure.
You know, that's interesting. You guys would be like, shit, I'm renting mine for $850. Oh, okay. Yeah. We're getting $925 now in our building. We just, you know what I mean? Like, you're an owner. So I've always had great conversations. And just word of mouth is another great thing to do. I was in the basement of our single family rental at the time. We were brand new. We only had a few units. And I told the city inspector, and I was deathly afraid of this city inspector because, you know, this guy can make or break you. I'm new. So he's coming in, he's looking at everything for the rental certificate. And I'm like, oh shit. And I just mentioned to him, like my voice was cracking. I was so scared. I'm like, hey man, do you know anybody looking to sell apartment building, or do you know anybody that owns apartment buildings? And he goes, you know what? As a matter of fact, I do. There's this lady named Blanche in the city I lived in. And she owns like 65 of them. You should reach out to her.
Wow.
And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And so guess what? I did what he told me to do. So I reached out to her and she's like, how'd you get my number? Right? She's 80. And I told her, and she's like, long pause. And she's like, I'm not looking to sell anything. But she goes, here's 5 properties. They do a shitty job. You should reach out to those 5 and see if they want to sell. I reached out to all 5. 5th one owned a liquor store. I knew the guy. I knew the liquor store. I didn't know he owned the building next door, but I went into the liquor store and I said, hey, do you own the building? Yeah. You ever thought of selling? He goes, yeah, I would sell. I said, okay. And I was like, well, now I don't know what to say.
Yeah, right.
It's not supposed to work like this, but it does. It really does.
That's a great story. I think, and that's encouraging too. And I like how you said it. You, as an owner or prospective owner, like you're doing kind of like it's almost like you are doing a sales call, but in a professional way. Like commercial real estate brokers do this all the time. That's what they do is they call owners and they build a relationship, take them out to coffee, lunch, all that stuff, because at some point in time, they're going to sell and you want to be there. So for you had 110 people that was basically on your client list, and you would just, through your cadence, whatever that call cadence was, you were calling them, having conversation with them, talking about things that matter to them and you, and eventually it shakes out to something.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not kidding. I never had anybody that was rude.
Sure.
No one that was rude. Some people weren't interested in selling, and I'd ask them, do you mind if I check back with you in a few months? Yeah. They've all said, yeah, that's fine. One guy I talked to 110 units, 110 or 120. And he lived in a very affluent city. I'm like, screw it. I'm calling him anyway, right? Like that would be more of a broker would list that, but I'm like, I'm going to call him anyway. And I talked to the owner. He's like, no, I'll tell you what, we're not interested in selling. My sons are going to take over the property, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, do you mind if I touch base with you in a few months? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. You know what I mean? So it happens. And I'm just, now when I first started calling these people, I didn't own apartment buildings. So I would just say I own real estate in the area. I would try to just relate myself to them. Or my wife and I drive by your building. I love it.
Yep.
It's in a great spot. Or I love what you did with the paint, the color, the new roof, this, whatever. I just try to relate and just be nice and just ask them if they're interested. And okay, that's cool. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing I really like about what you're saying there, Grant, is, you know, it's all the fundamentals of marketing and sales, right? Is you determine your audience base and you do the sales process. You know, you have the initial phone call where you introduce yourself, you identify if there's an opportunity there or not, and you're setting a follow-up cadence. And then eventually, if someone is open to receiving an offer, you make an offer. And that same concept exists whether you are doing multifamily, you're doing single family, you're doing, you know, selling widgets, you're selling online courses, you know, you're doing anything else. Marketing and sales is fundamentally the same. And that's really one of the most important skills. And that's really, really cool. So going back to that seller financing piece really quick, 'cause this is a question we get asked about all the time. When it comes to negotiating seller finance deals, how do you kind of like open that conversation? Because kind of like Dan said, people typically want like a large down payment, which obviously isn't necessarily favorable to you as an investor. Also, people tend to, I would say from our experience doing seller financing, they tend to have term expectations, which are based off of whatever the current bank terms are or current like economic situation is, which isn't always beneficial either. So what are some good tips that you have around approaching a seller finance situation kind of early on?
Well, okay, here's two really good tips. First, don't give the seller any money. Okay. Don't ever give them money. Get a title company involved. Title company gets the money, not the seller. A lot of people might make that mistake.
Like to give money to the seller directly?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, if you
nobody does that. Who does that?
It's your first deal. That's why I like to tell people like,
there's a lot of sellers that ask for it.
Do not give that seller money. Listen, the seller we bought our first property off of, he had no idea. Like he probably thought we give him, you know, $120,000, but get a title company involved. They'll disperse funds. The other thing, I forget what the other thing was I was going to tell you, but I'll remember it in a minute. But you ask them, just ask him. I asked him, do you own the building? Yeah. I asked the second building too. Do you own the building? Yeah, I do. Would you be interested in seller financing? No, the second building was off market, but he said, no, I'm not. I want to do. I said, okay, all right, that's fine. You sure? Like, because here I would lay out the steps, you know, your returns over time, you know, you're gonna have to pay less capital gains. You could spread your capital gains out over time. You know what I mean? It's going to be, I'm going to pay you now. So it's going to be more passive, right? You're not going to have to do any of the work, but you're going to get that payment every month. Like you were, you know, like you've been getting. And really that's all I do. I just try to explain it to them, try to tell them, hey, here's the advantage of it. And again, the second building I said, and I can put you in touch with the first gentleman we did own seller financing with, if you want to ask him how he performed or whatever. And he's like, no, I trust you, but I just don't want to do it. And that's step one. You got to ask, right? And most people don't ask. And again, like you guys said, well, most sellers want a high down payment. And I'm like, well, is that true or is that a story? How do we know? Have you asked 100 sellers? And you can go, yeah, Grant, I asked 100 sellers and 100 sellers said they want a high down payment. Or is it like, well, yeah, I talked to one or two. And I'm talking in the multifamily space. You know what I mean? So a lot of times people will do that with these preconceived notions. Like, oh, I don't want to even ask. He's probably going to want a lot of money down. Ask him and tell him, hey, man, I'm going to have to do a lot of work here. I don't have a lot. But the good news, if I don't perform, you get to take the building back. So can you work with me on that? What could we do that I could get the building, take it off your hands, and we could work this out? You know what I mean? Maybe I give you a little bit more money. We adjust the interest rate. I don't know, but it's always a conversation. And if you don't ask, you'll never know.
Yeah, I like that. And there's like lots of ways to structure these to where it's advantageous to both of you. Like one of the things that I quickly get, especially if you're worried about like taxes, like the seller's worried about taxes and you're worried about cash flow while you're repairing or adding value. Like what if you just did interest only for the first 2 years where he's not getting any of his and his capital back. So he's not having to pay capital gains. He's going to pay, normal income tax, and you're getting a lower monthly payment. So you can do the repairs or, take the time to fill the units. Like there's so many cool things you can do with creative finance. As long as you know what would work for them and you know what works for you, there's something in the middle if they're open to it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's totally, there are no rules. You know what I mean? It's totally between you and the seller. So you can just make whatever up you want that works. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so are you still acquiring right now in current interest rate environment, like outside of seller financing, or what does your current day-to-day in business look like?
So we just moved to, a year now, just bought this house that we live in now. We moved to Florida from Detroit. We live in St. Petersburg, Florida now. So we stopped, or we put that on pause, buying anything else, because we want to get familiar with the market. We want to see if maybe Florida's where we're moving to, or where we're going to invest. So we haven't really done much with that right now. But I have a course, the Apartment Buying Blueprint. I've been full time into that for the last year and a half, teaching people how to buy those 5 to 20 units. And then the other thing is my social media. And now I just switched over to YouTube long form. And that now is like my main focus, my YouTube channel. So
let's talk about that for a minute then. So you're basically saying, and you and I had a little bit of conversation before the show, like you have your 41 units and now you're doing something totally different. You're a social media YouTube influencer. Like, let's talk about like how real estate is allowing you to do that, kind of your mindset around it, I guess.
And I'm going to say this, and this will be just about the only time it's ever been said on the internet. I don't love real estate. Okay. Oh my gosh. Right.
Grant said it here.
Yeah. And here it is. I love what it's done. And let me clarify that. Today, I'm not as passionate as I was 10 years ago about buying properties, rehabbing them, going through all this. We self-manage. We do all this stuff, my wife and I ourselves. So we've done a lot of it. We've seen a lot of it. And I'm just not as passionate about it as I was back then. Here's the beautiful thing, right? So somebody might be watching this just starting going, oh no, what does that mean? Isn't everyone supposed to love it forever? No, you're supposed to work your ass off, build something, whatever it might be, and then do whatever the hell you want. So I now have gotten to a point and I said, you know what? YouTube interests me more. I'm going to focus on YouTube. And I don't know if I love putting out real estate content anymore. So I'm not going to do it. So that is freedom. And that's what people don't understand. People watching this, you do not have freedom. I hate to tell you, but you do not have freedom. Let me go back 3 or 4 years ago, whatever job you were in, however you felt about, let's say, the shot, right? Whatever you felt, if you worked a certain job, your ass was getting it or you're getting fired. Now, is that freedom? No. But that's when I truly went, holy shit, I get to choose. It's my decision what I do. It was incredible. And I was like, there's nobody making me make a decision because I built this. And this gave me true freedom from anything. And I get to do what I truly want. And that's freedom, man. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. You're in the rat race and you will not get out of it. So you need to start. Like, starting with you guys is a great step. You guys have been there, done that, and you can help people get going. But you got to start.
That's really good insight. I'm glad you said that, because you said it. You're like, I don't want to put out real estate content anymore. And you're empowered enough to know that you have that ability to make that choice. And also, honestly, some confidence in yourself to just be like, I don't like doing it anymore. It got me here, but it's not going to get me there. So like that is really powerful.
Yeah. And confidence might be a strong word because because it's scary, right? I'm how can I say that? And I might get back into it. And here's the thing too. I'm going to make a YouTube video that says, I broke up with a billionaire. Great title, right?
It is. Yeah.
Because I built this machine, my content, all of this. Instagram, I got 35,000 followers on there. Grant Cardone reached out to me, found me because of my real estate. He's a billionaire. And now I'm saying, I'm done with that content. I'm done with you. Right.
Wow.
And that's a little scary to do that because I've built up for that. And now I'm getting recognition in this space. And now I'm going, this space just, I don't know if it interests me anymore, talking about door stoppers and leaks and this stuff. I'm like, maybe there's something else out there that interests me more. But But again, the cool thing is since I built that portfolio, my wife and I were both 50-50 partners. I can do that. And I can say, you know what, why don't I go over here and see what happens? Maybe I come back, maybe I don't.
Yeah. That's cool.
And that's the true power with real estate. At the end of it is it gives you the ability to have these life-changing wealth generation events in a relatively short period of time, honestly, especially if you're buying things at good prices or on terms that are beneficial to you. I went to a mastermind with Aaron Demuchestegui last fall, and he opened it with a quote. I don't know if he came up with it or he got it from somewhere, but it was basically like, real estate is not the thing. Real estate is the thing to get you to the thing. And that's something that I've been pondering for most of the last year, because, you know, I don't know about Dan, but I'm quite the same as you. Like, I don't really have this desire to keep buying properties and to get more calls from property managers about how, you know, a tenant's been shoving tampons down the toilet, right? Or like going through the loan process again to have them like question all of my finances. I'm like, I've been doing this longer than you have, loan officer. Yeah. I've literally bought and sold hundreds of properties. Why are you stressed out about this like $30 difference in the debt to income ratio? Like, you're being ridiculous. And after a while, it's just like, why? Like, you don't need to keep putting yourself through that if you don't want to, especially once you've sort of made that little nest egg. So that's really good self-recognition. And so I guess you say you're going away from real estate content. Like, what are you looking to go towards?
I'm doing content on just things that inspire me. So the squatting in, just for instance, I did a video on this. So Florida passed an anti-squatting bill, which was amazing. I love living in Florida. I'm like, this is genius. And I'll come back to that. So New York, this woman gets arrested. She tried changing the locks on one of her tenants, right? Someone was in there squatting. I did a video on that. Go to my YouTube at Grant Warrington. It'll blow your mind how stupid this is. But New York finally said, okay, this is a bad idea. We need to pass anti-squatting laws. Good for New York. But then guess what they did? They said, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to take these squatters and we're going to help relocate them. We're going to give them a place to live. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, is that where we live today? There's no accountability, dude. Do you know what I mean? It fires me up just talking to you guys about it. Like, there is no accountability to say you did something bad and you should be punished about it. You know where they should help them live? Jail. That's where they should go. Right? They broke the law, yet we're gonna help them and we're gonna coddle them. And now we're also gonna create they're creating a task force. So guess what that means? More taxpayer dollars. More tax dollars. You're gonna pay for it, right? The taxpayers will, living in New York City. A task force, bloated government, right? And what they're gonna do now is they're gonna target homeowners of vacant properties. And they're gonna punish people for leaving their homes vacant for too long. Does that make sense? That's wild. So we're going to battle squatters by now going after the homeowners, because who's got the money? The homeowner, right? So it just, it blows my mind, stuff like that. You know what happens in Florida? DeSantis passed this bill. You go to the sheriff's office, you fill out a piece of paper, sheriff goes with you to house, sheriff kicks them out of house. Done. Nothing else. They didn't add any more jobs. They didn't, not jobs. This is bloated government in New York, but it's that simple, and it can be that simple. And that's, it's things like that that get me excited and go like, how come Florida is making these common sense laws and New York is doing stupid shit like that? So it just blows my mind.
Yeah. It's unfortunate to see things going in that direction. Seattle did that a number of years ago, where basically they had this new law where if you had a property in the city of Seattle that was vacant for a certain period of time, the city got the right to place somebody in your property for temporary housing. And their whole thing was like, we will pay you market rent for whatever that is, but they got to choose who it was. So you could have like, say, a duplex. Okay. And one side's a family, the other side's empty for whatever reason. And they go, cool, here's a meth head we're going to stick in this house next to this nice family that's renting the other side, you know? And like, there's all these ridiculous things that could have happened. I actually don't know what ultimately became of it, because they were pushing for that very, very aggressively. Do you know if that ever went through, Dan? That ever came to fruition?
I don't know. A lot of that stuff is getting overturned or getting put back. They're starting to realize like, oh, that was a bad idea. Like, you know, they had like a 5-year run, especially like the 2020 to like 2023 timeframe. Every city like that was passing stupid stuff, or like the decriminalization of drugs and like, oh, that was a bad idea. We better kind of flip that one back over.
And you know what I would ask in that situation too? Are they following fair housing by placing those tenants?
No.
Are those programs?
Of course not.
Of course not.
Right?
It's like reverse discrimination. You have the people that are out there trying to make ends meet that can't afford it, but they're not getting the same services. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Exactly. So they're violating fair housing. And it's just crazy. And that's what bothers me too, is there's no one out there for landlords. In Michigan, they're trying to pass a law that expunges evictions. So after 2 years, you can get evictions off your records.
Wow.
How do landlords protect themselves from these people? You know what I mean? There's awesome tenants out there. We have great tenants and great tenant relationships. Good tenants don't hate landlords, and good landlords don't hate tenants. It's a good relationship, right? But, you know, these government agencies try to get involved. And again, they don't want that accountability. No one's there saying, oh, you got evicted 4 times. You know what? You're the problem, not the landlord. Yes. But they say, well, let's pass these laws so we can hide your evictions, and we can, you know, these stupid landlords will just have to take you anyway. That's fair housing. It's not.
Yeah, just never ending, and who knows what direction it's going to go. Austin, I'll have to subscribe to your channel, though. I'm excited to sort of hear the direction you go with those sort of things.
Thanks.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we're getting into the end of the show here. Grant, I really appreciate the candor in the conversation. It's been a really good one so far. So we asked the same 3 questions of every single person that comes on the show. The first one, which is always the group favorite, is what is your craziest real estate investing story? This can be a big win, big loss, a crazy tenant, whatever you got.
Oh man. We've dealt with all kinds of crazy tenants, and I self-manage. And so it's been really crazy, but I'll leave those out. I would say the biggest one for us, we got cameras drained in our apartment building. I'm sorry, sewers camera'd in our apartment building before we bought it. Everything looked okay. What happened then after that? So the owner told us, hey, listen, I have to snake this unit every so often, every month or so. And I'm like, oh, okay, no big deal. So lesson number 1, if any owner ever tells you they have to snake a unit repeatedly, that's wrong. No property gets built to snake repeatedly. So you have to go, the line is broke. Okay, there's a problem. So what happened, we bring plumbers in. After we bought it, that unit kept backing up and we couldn't catch the problem. We'd call a plumber, they'd come in and snake it, and they'd say, we don't see anything. We can't fix anything. We don't see anything. The line's clear. Long story short, found a plumber after thousands and thousands of dollars spent on this, found a plumber who could figure it out. He ran all the water in the building. There was bellies in the pipe, which is okay and it's normal, but dirty water would sit in it. So this guy ran all the water, so clean water now. It flushed all the dirty water out, and clean water was sitting in the belly. So when he brought his snake through his camera, he could see the bottom of the pipe, and the bottom of the pipe was a zipper in it. That means the cast iron was jagged, cut. The bottom had fallen out. The toilet paper would come through, get stuck. All the water would back up. It would back up into the 10-inch unit, and then whoosh, it would release. And by the time the next day the camera came out, it was gone. So he found it. It cost us total spent on all plumbing like $27,000.
Wow.
That's a because lot. We had another plumber saying this over here is the problem. Nope. Now we can try this over here. He couldn't find it. So that was a good lesson learned. And I like to tell people that story because if they're ever going through that, that's probably what's going on. And that could save you a lot of time and money.
Yeah, that's good. We had a similar situation where we were in one of our duplexes, like chasing a problem, and like we could not figure out what it was. It wasn't that extreme. What it turned out to be is that the tenant upstairs was dumping their oil down the drain, but somehow it was going and blocking the unit next door. So we kept getting floods in one unit, but we couldn't. I mean, we were like, "What is happening here?" And it was like, yeah, same thing. Guys sneaking in. They're like, "There's nothing wrong here," because they were looking down the one unit, but the unit that was dumping the oil, it was not their unit backing up. It was the opposite. So it was just such a pain in the ass. And you're right. You spend thousands of dollars trying to figure these things out.
Yeah. And, I was a property manager too. I managed over 800 units. I was a director of operations for a property management company, over 100 rehabs. And we had this unit. It was an 8 unit. And directly in the center, in the closet, water was leaking. And there was no water above it. There was no pipes above it. It was like, where is this water coming from? So finally I told the guy, it's got to be this. Look on the outside of the building for any kind of pipe coming out. And there was a vent sticking out and it wasn't caulked around it. Here's what happened. Water was hitting that. It was running in 25 feet on top of the pipe. Yep. And then it would drip into the closet. Water is just will drive you crazy. And that was one. Luckily we figured that out.
Nice. Yeah, it's crazy, the like little things that you wouldn't even expect, right? And like that's also too why it's important to get like multiple opinions from people. Like if you know something's wrong and you get a plumber or a contractor who's like, no, I don't know. It's just like it was a crazy thing that happened. Well, it happened for a reason. If it happened once, it's probably going to happen again. And it probably happened before you bought the property, but the seller just didn't tell you about it.
Yeah. And you have to understand. It's like I tell people, what do they call a doctor that graduates last in his class? Right? A doctor. Yeah. It's the same thing with a plumber, man. Yeah. Like I've had arguments with plumbers and been like, dude, listen, I know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. I know you're a plumber, but you're wrong. Okay. You know how I know? I've done this 15 times, right? Mm-hmm. I've also had to tell plumbers who are putting shark bites on.
Oh yeah.
Hey bro, I'm paying you to solder these pipes, right? I'm not paying you to put shark bites. Oh, well, it was easier and whatever. I'm like, yeah, no, my handyman can do that. Mm-hmm. You need to do it the right way. Okay. So going forward, I will do that from now on. So you can't be afraid to stick up for yourself. And especially do Google search, watch YouTube, educate yourself on it, and then make sure you ask questions, man, because they are just human beings,
Yeah.
Yep. It's true.
That's definitely true. And I think as you get older, you realize exactly that. Everyone's just human beings. Everyone just wants to go home and, hang out with their family and do whatever, but they're there because that's their jobs.
And here, I know we're on this a while, but I always used to say when I was, I would tell the guys that worked for me, he with the most confidence wins. Mm-hmm. So I would tell him, when you call the building department, be confident. Tell them you have to have confidence, or they're going to act like they're more and they're going to win. Right. So it's the same thing with a plumber. He's going to tell you, oh, no, I'm right. Here's why I'm right, whatever. And that confidence scares people, right? Like, oh, okay. I guess you got to go, no, listen. And you got to push back sometimes and say, I don't agree. I think this is right. Or I think that, you know what I mean? Yep. He with the most confidence wins. Yeah, even when you're bullshitting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Even more so when you're bullshitting.
Even more so.
It's absolutely.
Yeah, cool. All right. So next question, Grant, what is the number one tip you would give to a real estate investor looking to take their business to the next level?
To the next level, I would level up. I would say level up, always level up, get started where you can, always level up. Even, when you get into the 5 to 20 units, start looking at those 70 units, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever you got to do, level up. There's power in ownership. Syndications are cool. You've heard a lot about that, but there's a lot of issues now with syndications, commercial loans. The other thing, one more tip I like to tell people is your property taxes are going to go up the year after purchase. You have to remember that no matter what you're buying and where you're buying. I don't know everyone's state, but more than likely 99% of the time, don't run your numbers on past performance. Your property taxes could double and it could kill the deal. So keep that in mind.
Totally.
Yeah. As everyone's learned over the last year, they not can double, they will double.
They do go up. Taxes do go up.
Yeah, significantly. Yeah. I have a triplex that literally the property taxes are 2.5 times what they were when I bought the property 2019. When I bought it, it was like 3,000. Now it's like 8,000 a year. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's the problem. People don't, even in buying a residential house, their realtor doesn't tell them that. And they buy the house, everything's great. And then January comes, property gets reassessed, taxes uncap, and their escrow is short. And now their payment's going up $800 a month.
Yeah.
And when you get into apartment buildings, that number can be very significant. If someone's owned that property for 30 years, that property has not uncapped, and it will uncap when you buy it, and then it'll recap and then just go up incrementally. But they will adjust.
True. That's a great tip.
Yeah, that's a really good tip.
Yeah, awesome. All right, Grant, last question. Where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you?
You can follow me on Instagram if you want to direct message me. Anybody's got any questions? I can't respond back with a book, but I will help you where I can. You can DM me there. But YouTube is where I suggest to really follow me there. Right now, I got like 4,000 subscribers there, so we're building that up. Awesome. The goal is to hit 100,000. So interested to see how quick we'll do that. But that's where more of me, and that's what I love about YouTube. I'm able to talk like this with you guys. I don't need to break it down into a 30-second clip, right? Like totally. I can go in depth on what I feel. And I always tell people, hey, I'm an expert on my own opinion. You know?
Yeah, I like it. I love that.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Grant, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. We really, really appreciate it. You guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode today. Go and shoot Grant a follow on YouTube. Check him out on Instagram. He's posting a lot of great stuff. And don't be afraid to reach out and tell him that you enjoyed the show and ask him any questions that you have about small multifamily. Remember, people come onto these shows because they want you to engage with them. We're not just like all sitting in a vacuum. Everyone that's involved in these kind of things is very, very friendly. And if they didn't want you to reach out and communicate, then they would just sit at their home and not post on the internet. So don't be shy. Reach out to Grant, say what's up, let him know you heard us on this show, and maybe you guys could do a deal together or something. You never know. So awesome. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, Grant.
Thanks, guys.